fragment of bone, but these bones were broken internationally. It's very interesting. Here we have 3 other adults, but there we have only very small pieces and no complete bones. And no long bones, nothing, no skulls, nothing. Just very small pieces. And the phalanx is in the granite. There's a place with the only place with connection of the 2 categories of adults and the children there, and some pieces of the 6 adults are mixed with the children. But the only skull we have on this cave is a temporal for the last person buried inside this cave, and this temporal was buried inside a small pit covered again by a wall. It seems that this kind of discoveries are maybe you understand that why on this time I have interpreted this. I have interpreted this kind of discoveries as collective tombs, but now I think it's maybe more probably a site for the treatment of the dead, because we have exactly the opposite circumstance of a secondary burial, for example. We have only the small pieces, we have only the rest that we found inside a secondary burial. Maybe it's just a place for the treatment of the dead, not a grave. And this kind of circumstance maybe belongs from a long traditions. You know that during all of the upper Paleolithic of Western Europe, we have some traces of manipulation, of action inside the human bones, as this one for the Bac de Bouliane in the Charente, the grotte du Placard cave, with this kind of sculpture of the skull. We have also a necklace in the human teeth, and so on. And maybe we have not collective graves during the Mesolithic, but we have a special place for the treatment of the dead, of the bodies of the dead. And in the Utur rock shelter is clear that the Mesolithic have taken away all of the very important bones. Sometimes fragments of bones are broken, sometimes complete bones, all of the skull and so on. For what? I don't know. But maybe it's the first case of a discovery of a place for the treatment of the dead. And you know also that for the Western Upper Paleolithic we know some individual graves, but for all of the Upper Paleolithic we have only 100 graves. It's not a lot. And this one is used as the most important example of the funeral practices for the Magdalenian, but it's the only case of this kind of discoveries. And the rest of the Magdalenians are known only through objects made in human bones, not through different graves. But in Central Europe, during the Upper Paleolithic, we have single graves with individuals, with never manipulation of the bodies, with never recuperation of some bones. We have a normal way for the bodies, but we have very few examples of this kind of funeral practice. Really, we know nothing about the funeral practices of the Upper Paleolithic. We have just some some data, but it's not enough to interpret the funeral practices of this time really. But before this Magdalenian or Epigravettian period, we have the same dichotomy between Western and Eastern Europe. For example, here you have the discovery of the Cussac grave in Charente again, with deposit of human bones inside the cave, but without real innovation, just a deposit on the surface. And at the same time, in Central Europe, in Italy, for example, you have a real individual or double or multiple inhumation tombs. So we have in Europe, maybe during the hunter-gatherer period, we have two districts. Western part are more interested with manipulation of bones, of human bones, and in central or eastern part of Europe, they prefer apparently to bury definitively their dead. During the Mesolithic, we have the same situation. We have place for manipulation of bodies, we have place for the treatment of bodies, we have a lot of case of manipulations of body, and with recuperation of some parts of the skeletons. I speak about relic, I don't know what is it exactly, but we have not real grave for this period. But at the same time, during the Mesolithic period, in Eastern Europe, we found the first cemetery of Europe. This example is from Ukraine, but we have the same situation in different parts of Europe as here, more recently for the late Mesolithic in the Scania, in south of Sweden, but we have also some cemeteries, necropolis in Denmark, in Netherlands, and so on. And it seems that Western Mesolithic, it's follow the tradition of the Western Upper Paleolithic, and the rest of the Mesolithic follow the tradition of the central and eastern part of Europe. And if I've proposed 25 years ago that maybe the pseudo-collective burials of the Mesolithic of Western Europe are maybe the origin of the collective burials during the origin of the collective burial of the Middle Neolithic of Western Europe, inside the megaliths. Today, I propose that maybe the collective burial is especially a tradition for sedentary people with food production. And but in the megaliths, we have also a lot of manipulation of body. We have also recuperation of some bones. We have movement through the bodies. Maybe only this aspect is a legacy of the previous period. And because we have a very nice continuity in Europe, in Western or Eastern part, we have continuities through the relation with the body of the dead. In Western part of Europe, during Upper Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic, the people are interested to have pieces of the dead with them. They accept to touch the bodies, to transform the connection of the skeletons. On Central Europe or in Eastern Europe, they prefer to put the bodies inside the grave and in white inside his grave. That's all. Sure, we don't know what the idea of the dead on one part of the second part of Europe, but sure, they think by another way the relation with the dead. And I know today, for me, it's difficult to explain the origin of the collective grave in the Neolithic period, but it seems that these origins have a small legacy from the time of the hunter-gatherer people from the Mesolithic and maybe from the Upper Paleolithic. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'm very tired, I'm ill, and I know it's not a good presentation, but it's okay.
Okay, so we have time for questions. No, okay. Thank you. That's all right. It's quite a change in
There is a question.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a question.
Oh.
Perhaps not so much a question, but the beginning of a comment, maybe. For Upper Paleolithic burials, we do know some things about them. For example, ochre is a common feature. It's also found in the Mesolithic.
Yeah, I've not speak about that, but yeah.
I mean, we do know a little bit about some kind of what looks like funerary processing, or at least preparation of a corpse. And what I'm wondering is, it's strange because that ochre is found so commonly, and it is found in the Mesolithic as well, and then seems to disappear, but is retained in, for example, in the Near East. And my question is, what do you think, I mean, is this simply a kind of cultural borrowing, or is there any relationship at all here?
Sure, but the problem of prehistory is that we have a strange data. We have just the opposite data of the ethnograph, because we can access to the ceremonies, for example. But I don't know, I have no interpretation for the deposit of ochre, but in Margot Cave, the first cave I've shown, there are a lot of ochre only on the bones, but not on the bottom of the grave.
Yes, okay, that's what I'm kind of, that's, my memory was that there was
Yeah.
ochre there. Yeah.
But on the second side, we have no trace of ochre for the collective deposit. But for the individual grave, we had also deposits of ochre, but on this case, it's on the skeleton, but also on the bottom of the grave. That is to say,
So
but it's clear that the individual grave, it's a primary burial.
Yeah, so there seems to be there are two things possibly going on. One is preparation of the grave,
Yeah.
and the second is preparation of the body.
Yeah.
And again, that's fascinating that the same material should be used, as if it, and we've talked about pollution. And is that what this is? Perhaps it's something that has to happen in order to cleanse, or to prepare, to make something that could be seen as pollution into something that is somewhat more acceptable.
Yeah, but I don't know really.
Well, the thing is we always stop at that and say, oh, well, we don't know what it means. But actually the pattern is so repetitive that clearly across huge space and great time, people are sharing in the same practices. And again, I would see this as,
But
even if ethnographers...
Yes, but we have the same problem with the rock art. The rock art of Upper Paleolithic is the same kind of art, with very, it's close from the early Nearsand period to the Magdalenian period, and just after it completely disappeared.
Yes.
And the problem, there are two problems. Why the same art during a so long period, and why this art disappeared so quickly? It's the same for this kind of the practices with the dead. We have a long time with the same kind of practices, and after that changed completely. Yes.
For me, the interesting thing about Cauwe and also about Ramito, which is in Italy, is that you have rock art with burials, with things like ochre use in the same place. And despite, again, there's quite a time difference there, it's quite a curious repetition of things that are found in the same place. And it would seem to me, again, that we're dealing with some kind of body of thinking that is influencing the funerary record for quite a long period of time. It's not consistent, that's true. But actually it does keep coming in and out as if there's something current or maintained. And again, this is this question of transmission. How is this done? And I'll say it again, I think there is some kind of ritualist that is doing that, and this is an oral tradition. Things that are kept, I mean, in the ethnographic record you get that sense that very rarely are those people actually brought out. They're usually referred to as someone who is involved in controlling things, some kind of memory person. But actually, that's maybe what we're finding. We're actually finding their behaviors over quite a period of time. In other words, quite strong oral cultural transmission and retention. I know it seems, again, we tend to say, oh, but it's so long, but how else do you explain this? But people are constantly rediscovering this? I mean, I guess you could say that. Perhaps it's reusing things. That something, a particular event requires this sort of arsenal to be selected. And again, I sometimes wonder if we're so timid about the way we interpret things that the significance is kind of lost. And we seem very, we can see that if it's in a text, it can really make up quite elaborate schemes. And my feeling is the physical material evidence is actually telling us some of the same things. Yes, it's true, we won't know exactly the details of who is buried, but we do know that some things are being repeated and then they stop. And something, it must tell us something changed.
Yes, yes, but we change. At the moment that they stop to use that, they change of economy, social
Yes, but
context, and yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like Mark Pearson was saying, that we can actually address, or at least suggest what we should be looking at.
Yeah. And maybe the relation with the dead change also.
Yes. Yes, possibly.
Yeah.
Nicolas,
Yeah.
how do you interpret Cussac? Dépôt primaire,
Yes, but
dépôt primaire perturbé, disturb dépôt
I'm not
primaire,
sure.
or dépôt secondaire?
I think it's secondary depot on surface, and also disturbed by because it's on surface. It's the two actions together. But I have no access for this moment on the precise data for this cave. I know the problem, but it looks like a secondary deposit after this deposit was disturbed by animals, by I don't know, because it was not buried. It's on surface. It's a very complicated situation.
Another question? Okay, thank you. So we can move to the next and last presentation of today by John Robb, who will ask a very important question, which is how are individual and collective burials really different?
Good afternoon. I want to start with 3 words of beginning here. Slide around. Okay, great. The first is simply to thank the organizers for having invited me, and it's been a really interesting conference so far. The second is to thank you all for your tolerance in letting me speak English, and I've tried putting more text on the slides than I normally do. The third